connected. Thanks so much for joining us today. Just if you aren't familiar with myself or the organization, I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Katie Baker. I'm with FAIR Idaho. FAIR is an acronym. It stands for Food, Agriculture, Restaurants, and Establishments. We're a nonprofit trade association that represents a local food system and was really born out of the pandemic. So within our membership, we have farmers, ranchers, food and beverage producers, independent restaurants, beverage establishments, and retailers that are a part of our organization. We've grown really quickly. We have 300 members across Idaho, and our goal is really to advocate on behalf of our members to really connect Idaho producers to Idaho retailers to build a more resilient food system and also build community around our organization. I want to quickly mention that we have a large event. I'll put the details into the chat so everybody can reference it. It's called the Field to Fork Festival. We'll have that on January 19th. If you can join us, it is open to the public. So I'll put that information into the chat, but we'd love to have you join us, and the LOR Foundation will be there as well. So we're excited to have them. And so, it was probably quite a few months ago. I think I started talking with Bill and Daniel. They've been great partners to us. And thanks to from the introduction from the University of Idaho, Mackenzie and Colette to LOR Foundation. But they reached out to our organization because they had a great opportunity called Fieldwork, which is an initiative that will provide funding for research into innovative approaches to using water in agriculture. So I would like to introduce Daniel Reed and Bill Yeager from the LOR Foundation to provide further details. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Katie. I think we're just so appreciative that all of you have taken a few minutes today to join us to learn a little bit about the initiative we're taking on. And we just are deeply appreciative of FAIR Idaho and Katie and Mackenzie and University of Idaho for opening doors and helping us connect with farmers and ranchers in the state. So we can talk a little bit about our organization, this initiative, and be responsive to questions you might have. For today, we have a few goals. One, we just want to make sure we're introducing the LOR Foundation to all of you. We wanted to make sure we were explaining our fieldwork initiative and how what we're trying to accomplish with it, eligibility criteria for the funding opportunity, and to be sure to answer any questions you might have, and then talk a little bit about next steps and timelines. So those are our goals for today. We're a small group, so if you've got questions along the way, feel free to offer them either in the chat or chiming right in. We're happy to keep this informal with such a small group. And just so you're aware, our contact information, we'll share that at the end of the presentation, and are always happy to meet individually with anyone, hop on the phone, answer emails about anything you might be interested in. So with that, we're going to jump right in and introduce ourselves. Again, as Katie said, my name's Bill Yeager. I work here at the LOR Foundation. I'm our Strategic Initiatives Officer. I'm joined by Daniel.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Daniel Reed, Research Analyst with the LOR Foundation.
And my colleague, Alex.
Hi, everyone. Alex Dunlop, Business Development Officer here at LOR, also based in Denver.
And just to offer a little bit of context, the LOR Foundation is a private philanthropic organization whose sole mission is to work with people in rural places in the Mountain West to improve quality of life. We are charged to deploy our philanthropic resources in ways that have a positive impact on people's lives in our region. And you can see in this slide the 5 states where we work. We are in New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and as part of this initiative, excited to be working in Idaho. We are really driven by community and community needs. We have community officers working in communities in northern New Mexico, Taos and Cuesta, southern and central Colorado, Monte Vista and Cortez, in Wyoming and Lander, in Montana and Libby, And as I noted, we are excited to begin work supporting quality of life initiatives in Idaho in the year ahead. As we sort of have noted, our goal is to really listen to the issues that people on the ground are experiencing and try to be responsive to those. And it's difficult to be talking about quality of life in rural parts of the Mountain West and to not be talking about agriculture and water related challenges. And so that's really where this initiative field work stems from. Our goal of supporting agricultural producers throughout our 5-state region with resources to pursue innovative solutions to their water related challenges. And those are places that Daniel will talk a little bit about.
Great. Thank you, Bill. That's an introduction to the foundation. Let's talk a little bit about field work and why we're here today. Field work is an initiative that will provide funding up to $10,000 for research into innovative approaches to using water in agriculture. The hope is that real world research will reveal solutions that can be used throughout the West to grow food while contending with unprecedented drought. We have a couple of goals at the foundation, and I'd like to share those because it's important that you know how we'll use the data that comes out of the solutions that we're funding. The first is, how can philanthropy reach farmers and ranchers efficiently? We really want to understand what are the challenges that farmers and ranchers are hoping to overcome, and how a direct funding model might be deployed efficiently. The second thing we're really hoping to understand what are the specific challenges that farmers and ranchers need help with. We really want to uncover a plethora, a diversity of challenges so that we can understand what solutions are out there and how we can share those solutions with other farmers and ranchers throughout the region. Now let's talk a little bit about the key details. And this, I think, is a really important 3 slides that'll help you determine your eligibility and perhaps interest in the funding opportunity. The first is, as I just mentioned, we are providing funding up to $10,000 for innovative water solutions. The application, which opens on February 1st, takes about 20 minutes to complete online. 20 minutes, I just want to be clear about that, is if you already have an idea. The application questions are simple, they're straightforward, they're not lengthy by any means. They do not require a background in requesting funding to apply. I think they should be very straightforward as long as you have the idea already. The applications are going to be scored by LOR staff as well as subject matter experts. We're working with an agronomist and an engineer so that we can really give every single application a fair review, whether it is something very basic or very complicated. We think we have the right team in place to fairly score each application. Timeline. As I just mentioned, application opens on February 1st, and it'll be open for a 3-week period. If you are selected for funding, you will be notified by March 15th. So very short window to complete and a very short window to be awarded as well. Finally, in terms of completing the project, we are asking that projects are completed by the end of 2023. And I just want to be clear about that word complete. It doesn't mean you have to have every single learning in place and really understand the full scope of impact by any means. This is really about deployment and investment in the project itself. And we can talk a little bit about what that means because each project will look a little bit different when it comes to that term completion. Let's also talk a little bit about the outcome areas and project types. The first thing I want to say about this is that we're incredibly flexible on both the outcome areas and the potential project types that you may be thinking about when you looked at this opportunity. Outcome areas are pretty straightforward. They're things like efficiency, reliability, quality, but there are also other opportunities to invest in projects that will change crop yield or diversification, and also labor efficiency. That's something we heard from other farmers and ranchers as a potential outcome area. In terms of project types, this is a simple list of things that could be funded, but there are many, many different kinds of projects that we're open to funding. So as you see the list, diversion, storage, delivery, these are all standard project type areas. But again, we're open to many, many different kinds of projects that you may be thinking of.
We might have missed a slide, Daniel, if you want to go back one there.
Thank you. Yes. And let's talk a little bit about eligibility criteria. This is something we want to be very clear about. We're only funding in rural places in Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, and Wyoming. If you have a farm or ranch in Washington, unfortunately, we won't be funding in Washington State, in Utah, or other bordering states. These 5 states are our clear mandate. But I do want to focus on the word rural, because I think this is really important. There are many different kinds of rural throughout Idaho. By and large, what we're looking for are places and projects that are going to be deployed in rural places, but rural might also look suburban in some cases. We're pretty flexible about what your form of rural will look like, but we want to be clear. We're not looking to fund in a downtown core. We're not looking to fund urban gardens. We're looking to fund primarily farm systems. And so if they do happen to be in the periphery of a city, and we know Ada County has plenty of farmland that is rural, certainly would be eligible. But if you are on the periphery of a city, that is okay. We're certainly flexible about that. But again, we're not looking to fund in urban corridors. The purpose, as you might be already guessing, is to really think about how projects can change our understanding of how water is used on farms or ranches. We already mentioned that the outcome areas are inclusive of many different kinds of projects. Finally, just a few legal notes so that everyone's aware. You have to have the legal authority to make the proposed changes. And we will ask you to affirm that in your application. Farm managers, you can apply, but please note that we will be contracting with the landowner themselves. Finally, this should go without saying, but we want to say it anyway. Psychoactive marijuana businesses are ineligible. We will not be funding those for many reasons. With that in mind, we want to take a quick look at what innovation looks like. And we want to be clear about this as well. Innovation looks different from project to project, and we set up 4 different kinds of innovation categories. Bill and I are going to discuss those really quickly. And as you're thinking about your potential interest in this funding opportunity, perhaps you could also be thinking about how your project is innovative and how it might fit into one of these 4 categories. I'll start with the first one, experimenting or prototyping a technology. This is really for those engineers and tinkers who are thinking in their garage or barn about a technical solution to a real problem on their farm. Projects should expand what we know about how water is used on farms and ranches in the West. And here's an important thing. Projects can be purely experimental. If you've never seen something and you're developing it, we'd love to think about funding that. However, prototypes that modify or enhance an existing technology are also eligible. So if you have something in your irrigation system and you have a way to enhance it or modify it in a way that suits your needs, we're also interested in looking at that in this innovation category. The second one, which I think should be attractive to many farmers and ranchers on the call today, is repurposing a practice or technology. So if you have an existing technology or practice and you're going to deploy it in a new way, we're interested in learning about that. Projects should really show that the new purpose is outside of what we call the general operating principles. Those projects are going to score highly for this. And again, you don't have to be inventing anything here. You just have to be proposing a new purpose or use for a technology or practice that you are already using on your farm or ranch.
The third category that will support projects in are scaling or expanding a practice or technology. So you might be using something to overcome a water-related challenge, but it might be smaller in scale. And this is your opportunity to go broader or deeper with that solution, practice, or technology. Projects that show how the technology or practice will be scaled to a new place or new operations on the farm will score highly. And then lastly, introducing a practice or technology to your area. So in this instance, you might have heard about a practice or technology that you might be interested in trying out, but it's not commonly used in your part of the state or on your farm, and it's not typically used in the area, but you're curious, could we try this and learn something along the way? The more uncommon a practice or technology is to a region or watershed, the higher it will score.
Great. And with that, we think that we've provided all the information that you would need to assess your eligibility and interest in the funding opportunity. On this screen, you can learn more by visiting our website, looking at the frequently asked questions. Also wanted to note that we'll be repeating this webinar a few times on January 19th and 24th at 3 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So if you do have an interested party who couldn't be here today, please do share this information with them. And finally, you have our direct lines of contact. Again, Bill Jager and Daniel Reed at the LOR Foundation. With that, that is our pitch and presentation today. We wanted to keep it short and tidy because we want to hear from you, the farmers and ranchers, about potentially what questions you have or any other question that would help you assess your eligibility or interest. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and open it up to the floor.
You can raise your hand or put something in the chat if you have any questions at all.
I'll kick us off with a question. And I guess I'll ask from my perspective, if someone contacts me and they think they might have a good idea, but they're not sure, or they watch one of these webinars and they go home and they are thinking about what they might propose, do you recommend that they reach out to you directly and kind of give you a rundown of what their idea is? Are you able to give feedback back to folks before they submit their applications?
Yeah, great question, Mackenzie. And the short answer is yes. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking about. We want to troubleshoot questions. And I think maybe one of the things to step back that we've heard along the way in this initiative is some of the challenges that exist with various funding streams, being able to access them, being able to get clarity about them, being able to complete an application in a timely fashion, having quickly deployable resources. We want this to feel different in that sense. And so if you've got questions, you've got the mighty team of 3 here who are eager to talk about your project, to help you think through. As Daniel noted, we really have this goal of learning from people on the ground and how they're going to overcome or how they're implementing solutions to their challenges, opportunities. And so what I would say is contact us, talk it through, and we can help you think about the fit and perhaps also ways that we could help you think about moving up that innovation ladder, so to speak, where it's not just overcoming that challenge, but it's maybe trying it in a new or creative way that lets us all learn. I think one of the other things that we've heard is how difficult it can be to propose an idea that you're not sure is going to have the outcomes you hope it would. This is a place where we want to be supportive of creative and innovative thinking. And with that comes an understanding that you might be pushing the envelope of what would work and wouldn't. And in that sense, this is not about paying for the outcome. It's about supporting the research and innovation and learnings that come from it. So hopefully that's all a message that says, yes, please talk to us, let us know what you're thinking. And we want to be helpful in having you think through that project. And if we get out of our depth in terms of expertise, we have wonderful folks who work in extension. We have wonderful folks who work in a variety of fields that maybe we could help connect potential applicants with to sort of further refine their thinking about their project.
Josh, you raised your hand and there's a couple of questions in the chat as well. Josh, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. So I guess, like in my case, I'm a pasture-raised pork operation, and we struggle regularly with traditional funding just because we don't fall inside of many, if any, boxes. So, as like an example, could this funding go towards like irrigation, like towards pivot or self-watering systems? Do you have some examples, I guess, for people?
You want me to go?
I would prefer you.
Okay. Yeah. Great question, Josh. We like people who don't fit in boxes. We appreciate those who are pushing the envelopes, thinking creatively, doing things a little bit different. And so do want to sort of encourage you to connect with us directly on some of your ideas, and are always excited when people are thinking outside the box. What I would say is the examples you gave, irrigation, self-watering, anything that is helping you overcome a water-related challenge or opportunity is fair game. I think what helps applicants score higher is if they're trying something out that might be a little bit different. Either it's something you're doing or you've heard about, isn't commonly used, is maybe a little bit different for the region, different in general. Those are all things that we're most interested in. And we understand sometimes it's just about overcoming some obstacle that helps you sort of get to the next stage. So the short answer is, if you are in a rural area in Idaho and have an idea up to $10,000 that helps you address a water-related challenge or opportunity, you're eligible, and we'd love to hear from you. Those things that help you score a little bit higher are those things where you're pushing creativity and innovation and trying some things out. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I have a question that came in the chat from Melissa. Can you give examples of some prior projects that were accepted?
Well, a couple of things. This is our first time running this funding initiative, so we haven't funded in this area before. But when we think about innovation, kind of looking at those categories, once again, I'll repeat them just briefly for the team: experimenting or prototyping, repurposing, scaling, or introducing. We have a lot of different ideas that have come in, and without sharing those specific ideas, since those were in privileged conversations, I think, Melissa, what we have heard of, let's just take scaling as an example. We have somebody working on an innovative technology on their farm. They're doing it at a very, very small level because they're not sure that it's going to work. They're requesting funding to expand that operation, and they're also requesting funding so that they can do some research into that operation. So about $5,000 of those dollars will go directly to physical material, and $5,000 will go towards research and proof of concept. So that is a way that we're providing funding for scaling. As far as experimenting or prototyping, which might be kind of the more engineering or designer category, we've seen things in terms of how water quality is addressed on small farms and ranches throughout places in Colorado and New Mexico. And so what people there are doing are using innovative technologies that are more applicable for either very rural places in, for example, Africa or Southeast Asia. And they're bringing those technologies to their farm because they want to focus on water quality in a very intensive way. So Melissa, unfortunately, we can't answer your question directly because this is our first time funding this kind of opportunity. But if you give us an email or a ring and we put our contact information in the chat box, we can certainly discuss your ideas and see if we can kind of come to an understanding of what innovation category it would fit into.
The other sort of guidance that might be helpful is, and we'll share the slides obviously, but going back to the outcome areas and project type slide, I think, what you see there is a number of different categories of potential activities that might get your creative brain working. It might be water efficiency, reliability, quality, crop yield, and diversification, or even labor efficiency. This is an initiative about supporting innovative ideas that help improve the quality of life in the Mountain West. And so it's not just about water savings or conservation. Mm-hmm. If there are things that are going to help you overcome a water-related challenge that address labor efficiency, that's another example. So a number of different ideas on that slide that are at sort of a category level rather than a project level that are hopefully helpful guidance.
Thank you. Clay, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah. My question was partially just answered, I guess. Our situation is we're a certified organic operation, and one of the issues that's of concern is just we have irrigation water coming down a canal. Mm-hmm. So I just don't use it, which is kind of just ignoring the situation, and I just use groundwater mm-hmm. for irrigation.
Mhm.
But moving forward, using groundwater and aquifer water is not the most beneficial. And so I guess, would there be a potential for like an initial funding for just research into potential contaminants in the water? Because that would be like a weekly water sample all year. But then if it resulted in data that, yes, there were prohibitive substances for an organic farm in the irrigation water, then how could I potentially use that in a second year funding, maybe use that as like a recharge source to recharge my aquifer, or how to, it kind of opens Pandora's box as far as like water quality goes. But that's kind of when I saw this grant, that's what jumped into my mind of like, oh, to test weekly for contaminants in my water is roughly around $10,000 to test every week. So I guess my question in short would be, are you going to continue this funding maybe next year or in the future?
Yeah, I'm happy to start, but I think wheels are turning around the table here. So would love others to chime in. I think there's a few questions embedded there, like your specific project, and Clay, happy to connect with you individually on it. I think that this issue of utilizing or accessing water you have access to as a long-term sustainability strategy, and water quality as it impacts your particular farm is all in the ballpark. I think one of the things that we should mention is our general guideline is going to be that we want to fund no more than 50% of a project that's going to sort of planning or sort of assessment or research. So in that sense, sort of a project that was exclusively building a plan for making the transition or exclusively just assessing water quality isn't going to score as high as a project that takes that data and tries to do something with it, that says maybe we could try X strategy or Y strategy in this first year. And then, we can come around to the latter question of what does the future look like?
Yeah. Clay, do you mind if I kind of advocate for you for a second? Because I see a number of through lines that I think are really exciting in the proposal that you just gave. To Bill's point, we're really hoping that all of the funding requests have less than 50% going towards research and evaluation. And I totally understand why you need that research and evaluation. If I were in your shoes, perhaps this is how I would look at it. 50% of your funding may go towards the physical testing device that will go in your ditch or your canal, whatever your water source is. Perhaps another 50% would go towards the evaluation to pay a firm to come out and actually analyze that data and tell you a little bit about the quality of water that you would be receiving from that water source. So I think there is a through line in this. We're still only funding up to $10,000, so you may need to play around with the numbers or maybe how many assessments you can do. But I think there is an opportunity to fund what you're doing. And the innovation component to me is quite clear. You're trying to understand the quality of water for your organic operation. And if you can show that that's something that's unique to your area, or that you're trying to scale your organic operation on your farm or in your area, I think there are many different ways that I see innovation, Clay, shining through the proposal you just gave. So what I would suggest is reach out to us directly. Let's try to figure this out together, because I think that's a really exciting opportunity that you've just laid out.
Great, thank you.
And to come back around to the question of like, is there a year two? What's the long term? I think that that's an open question for us as an organization. Our goal this year is to learn as much as we can from you all who are doing the important work on the ground, and then to step back and say, well, what does this mean for the future? What are the ongoing needs? And is it us at the LOR Foundation that's helping solve that next step, or are we sort of elevating these examples to other funders, policymakers, other public funding streams around ways they need to support these types of projects? So it's a bit of an open question on where we go, but we're invested in this as a strategy to elevate solutions that can make this a sustainable way of living in the Mountain West.
Thank you. We have some questions in the chat, so I'll just run through those. Valerie asked, can we submit more than one project for consideration?
Yeah, I think I can answer that. Valerie, if you have two ideas or more, I suggest you contact us and let's talk a little bit about your two ideas and see which one is more likely to score highly and get funded. As a rule, we're trying to get from each operation, each farm branch, only one application. And so to do that most efficiently, Valerie, I suggest that you reach out and let's have a quick conversation about your two ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And Randall asked, how soon can one look over and start preparing for the application?
Shortly. The application will open February 1st, and then there's that 3-week window to apply. As Daniel alluded to, there's no, it's not a first come, first serve model. And so if it's, hey, I want to look at those application, or I want to start the application February 1st, but I need time to work through things and submit February 22nd. There's no disincentive to doing that. It does help us on our end to be able to sort of work through projects as they're submitted. So as soon as you're ready, after the 1st, I would encourage you to submit your proposal. We are hopeful and I think still planning to put the application questions on our FAQs as part of our website prior to February 1st. We don't have a firm date because we're continuing to sort of refine those and make them as streamlined as possible. We're trying to strike this balance between asking enough to understand you and your project with not creating a burden that we know is common when seeking funding. So to kind of hit that 20-minute, once you've got your project in mind, submission timeline, we're just sort of taking an extra moment to make sure we've got the right balance of questions. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we can point everyone back to the website and say, here's where the questions are. You can think about them prior to the 1st. But I would note that window, the 1st to the 22nd, is truly a full window and not a first come, first serve approach as you sort of digest the questions as we get the final application questions firmed up.
Could I add
Yes.
one thought to that? Randall, I think, and others as well, I think one thing you could do if you're eager to sort of get your thinking down, I think there are some things you can start thinking through now. Daniel walked through the innovation questions, and so you can start thinking about how your idea might fit into one or more than one of those categories. If there's equipment involved, I know sometimes it takes a minute to get quotes for equipment costs. And so that's another thing. If you already know that you need X or Y and you think it costs around $6,000, go find out how much it costs. That's another thing to collect. We will be asking for budget lines as simple as possible, very few categories, but certainly equipment and is one category that I sometimes takes some time to nail down. So that's another thing you could do in preparation if you are wanting to get started right away. And then also just talking to us about the ideas, another thing, hopefully we can help.
Thank you. So the last question that we have in the chat, are projects on tribal land eligible? And that comes from Christina.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
easy.
Yes, indeed, they are. And the same applies. We just need to hear from the applicant who can certify that he or she has the authority to make changes to the land. If you are managing, whether you're a farm manager or an owner directly, we just need to know that the entity that we're funding is the same entity that has the authority to change the land, to work on the land, whether that's diverting water, digging new something, building a new something. You have to be the ones with the right to do so. Yeah.
Great clear.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? And just so everybody knows, I'll make sure to send this recording out to all the participants that registered, as well as other fair farmers and ranchers.
Well, I hope one of the clear takeaways is we want to hear from you. If you've got an idea, let's connect. You've got a wonderful resource in FAIR and Katie and Mackenzie and the University of Idaho, who we've really benefited from great conversations with, all the way back to sort of like design phase of making sure that this was accessible and workable. So if you've got a relationship there, I think they can help direct you to us. Reach out directly. We do want to hear from you and are just so appreciative of the work you do every day as farmers and ranchers and want to see that be successful.
Yes. Thank you everyone for joining us, and special thanks to the LOR Foundation for taking the time. We're really excited about this opportunity, and we hope to see you all at the event on January 19th, as they will be joining us as well. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good afternoon.